Hello, Block 4. Today you're going to read the first part of the myth Medusa's Head. But first, what is a myth? If you read along with me, it says it's a traditional story. It was told long ago in a particular culture. And we saw that video about Greeks and Romans. So it all began there, even though there's other cultures that have myths and legends and folk tales. Myths were created as attempts to explain occurrences in nature, such as why is it thundering? Why do the seasons change every few months? Describe historical events, or act as a guide to social customs and human nature. For example, teaching right and wrong, good versus evil, happy endings, the consequences of actions. So they would hold a lesson a lot of times. Like fictional stories, myths have elements such as setting, characters, plot, conflict, and resolution. In addition, specific elements of myths often include events in nature, such as the origin of the world and the seasons, like I said, heroes, such as warriors or leaders who have admirable qualities. And this particular Medusa's Head, you're going to read about a certain hero. Gods and goddesses who are immortal and have superhuman abilities, but possess human emotions and shortcomings. Okay? So, like I said, it's going to have a theme or a message, a lesson about life or human nature from a story or a myth. So, it is going to ask you about the gods, the goddesses. It's going to ask you about admirable qualities that one of the character possesses, and it's going to ask you what lessons you will be learning. So, I'm going to play the first part of Medusa's Head for you, and you have to answer questions along the way. It says, background. According to Greek myth, Medusa was one of three beautiful sisters known as the Gorgons. The sisters were turned into monsters by Athene, the goddess of wisdom, who was angry at the destruction of one of her temples. Medusa was turned into a horrific creature with a gaping mouth, hypnotic eyes, and hair made of writhing snakes. Anyone who looked into Medusa's eyes was immediately turned to stone. Medusa's Head, retold by Olivia E. Coolidge and Aga Shahid Ali.
Coolidge. King Acrisios of Argos was a hard, selfish man. He hated his brother Proitos, who later drove him from his kingdom, and he cared nothing for his daughter Danae. His whole heart was set on having a son who should succeed him. But since many years went by, and still he had only the one daughter, he sent a message to the oracle of Apollo to ask whether he should have more children of his own. The answer of the oracle was terrible. Acrisios should have no son, but his daughter Danae would bear him a grandchild who should grow up to kill him. At these words, Acrisios was beside himself with fear and rage. Swearing that Danae should never have a child to murder him, he had a room built underground and lined all through with brass. Thither he conducted Danae and shut her up, bidding her spend the rest of her life alone.
Don't forget to picture all of this. Already picture the kingdom where Argos lives, his daughter Danae, the underground room. That should all be in your head right now.
It is possible to thwart the plans of mortal men, but never those of the gods. Zeus himself looked with pity at the unfortunate girl, and it is said he descended to her through the tiny hole that gave light and air to her chamber, pouring himself down into her lap in the form of a shower of gold. When word came to the king from those who brought food and drink to his daughter that the girl was with child, Acrisios was angry and afraid. He would have liked best to murder both Danae and her infant son, but he did not dare for fear of the gods' anger at so hideous a crime. He made, therefore, a great chest of wood with bands of brass about it. Shutting up the girl and her baby inside, he cast them into the sea, thinking that they would either drown or starve. Again the gods came to the help of Danae, for they caused the planks of the chest to swell until they fitted tightly and let no water in. The chest floated for some days and was cast up at last on an island. There Dictys, a fisherman, found it and took Danae to his brother Polydectes, who was king of the island. Danae was made a servant in the palace, yet before many years had passed, both Dictys and Polydectes had fallen in love with the silent, golden-haired girl. She in her heart preferred Dictys, yet since his brother was king, she did not dare to make her choice. Therefore she hung always over Perseus, pretending that mother love left her no room for any other. And year after year a silent frown would cross Polydectes' face as he saw her caress the child. At last, Perseus became a young man, handsome and strong beyond the common, and a leader among the youths of the island, though he was but the son of a poor servant. Then it seemed to Polydectes that if he could once get rid of Perseus, he could force Danae to become his wife, whether she would or not. Meanwhile, in order to lull the young man's suspicions, he pretended that he intended to marry a certain noble maiden and would collect a wedding gift for her. Now the custom was that this gift of the bridegroom to the bride was in part his own, and in part put together from the All the young men, therefore, brought Polydectes a present, excepting Perseus, who was his servant's son and possessed nothing to bring. Then Polydectes said to the others, "This young man owes me more than any of you, since I took him in and brought him up in my own house, and yet he gives me nothing." Perseus answered in anger at the injustice of the charge, "I have nothing of my own, Polydectes, yet ask me what you will, and I will fetch it, for I owe you my life." At this, Polydectes smiled, for it was what he had intended, and he answered, "Fetch me, if this is your boast, the Gorgon's head." Now the Gorgons, who lived far off on the shores of the ocean, were three fearful sisters with hands of brass, wings of gold, and scales like a serpent. Two of them had scaly heads and tusks like the wild boar, but the third, Medusa, had the face of a beautiful woman with hair of writhing serpents, and so terrible was her expression that all who looked on it were immediately turned to stone. This much Perseus knew of the Gorgons, but of how to find or kill them he had no idea. Nevertheless, he had given his promise, and though he saw now the satisfaction of King Polydectes, he was bound to keep his word. In his perplexity, he prayed to the wise goddess Athene, who came to him in a vision and promised him her aid. "First, you must go," she said, "to the sisters Phorcides, who will tell you the way to the nymphs who guard the hat of darkness, the winged sandals, and the knapsack which can hold the Gorgon's head. Then I will give you a shield, and my brother, Hermes, a sword which shall be made of adamant, the hardest rock. For nothing else can kill the Gorgon, since so venomous is her blood that a mortal sword, when plunged in it, is eaten away. But when you come to the Gorgons, invisible in your hat of darkness, turn your eyes away from them and look only on the reflection in your gleaming shield. Thus you may kill the monster without yourself being turned to stone. Pass her sisters by, for they are immortal, but smite off the head of Medusa with the hair of writhing snakes. Then put it in your knapsack and return, and I will be with you."